The grand hall stretched so far that the walls at the opposite end looked like tiny lines. Above, a ceiling made of pure light showed a map of the entire galaxy. Stars blinked and moved in real time. Planets rotated slowly in their orbits. This was the Galactic Council Chamber. It was the most important place in known space. 2,000 different alien species had seats in this hall. Each seat was custom-made for the being who sat in it. Some were tall platforms for flying creatures. Others were pools of liquid IV, water-dwelling species. Some were just simple chairs for beings who looked almost like humans. Each seat represented a civilization that had managed to do something incredible. They had all discovered how to travel faster than light. They had all survived long enough to reach the stars. And they had all passed the council's tests, but one seat stood empty. It had been empty for a very long time. Ambassador Thalmar walked to the center of the hall. He had 4 eyes that could see in different directions at the same time. His skin was green and covered in small scales that shimmered under the lights. He was from the Viridian Collective, and he had called this emergency meeting. His 4 eyes scanned the crowd of alien delegates as he began to speak. "Honored members of the council," he said. His voice was translated instantly into 2,000 different languages. "We must discuss the matter of Earth." Again, a ripple of sound went through the chamber. Some species sighed. Others made clicking noises of annoyance. They had talked about Earth many times before. The answer was always the same. "It has been 200 years since we first heard their radio signals," Thalmar continued. 50 years since they split the atom and created nuclear weapons. 20 years since they landed on their own moon. And still, that seat remains empty. He pointed at the vacant chair that bore Earth's coordinates. The seat was made for a human body. It had been prepared decades ago, waiting for the day when Earth would be ready to join the galactic community. That day had not come. Council Speaker Vren rose to respond. He was not truly solid. He was pure energy contained inside a crystal body that glowed with soft blue light. He had been the speaker for 300 years. His voice was calm, but firm. "The protocols exist for good reason, Ambassador Thalmar. Earth has not achieved the basic requirements. They are still divided into nearly 200 separate nations. These nations fight each other constantly. They have weapons that could destroy all life on their planet. They have almost used these weapons. Not once, but twice. This is not a species ready to join us." Another delegate stood up. Her name was Hen, and she came from the Keltorian Assembly. She looked almost like a large cat that walked on 2 legs. Her people were known for being patient and wise. "Perhaps we judged them too harshly," Hune said softly. "Many of our own species needed time to unite. The Viridians fought civil wars for 5 centuries before they achieved peace. The Keltorians nearly destroyed our own world with chemical weapons. Every species here has a violent past. Why do we expect Earth to be different? Because they are still violent?" Thalmar snapped. "They have thousands of nuclear weapons pointed at each other right now, at this very moment. They spend more resources on weapons than on feeding their own hungry. They cut down their forests and poison their oceans. They know they are destroying their only home, and they continue anyway. They are not ready. They may never be ready." An old delegate named Jinwoo slowly stood up. He was one of the founding members of the council. His species had been traveling the stars for 10,000 years. He rarely spoke, but when he did, everyone listened. "I have been reading the old archives," Jinwoo said. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the entire hall. "From species that existed long before us? They left warnings about certain types of worlds. They called them death worlds. Planets where everything is trying to kill you. Extreme gravity, dangerous weather, predators everywhere. The archives say that species from death worlds are different. It's dangerous, unpredictable. What are you suggesting?" Speaker Vrin asked. "Earth is a death world," Jinwoo said simply. "I have reviewed the data. Their gravity is stronger than 70% of inhabited worlds. Their weather includes hurricanes, tornadoes, and earthquakes that would destroy our cities. They have predators with teeth and claws. They have diseases and parasites. Even their plants can kill them. And humans are the apex predator of this world. They climbed to the top of the food chain using nothing but cleverness and persistence. The hall fell silent. No one knew what to say to this. All the more reason to keep them quarantined, Thalmer finally said. If they are as dangerous as you suggest, we should never let them leave their world. Speaker Vren called for a vote. All in favor of maintaining Earth's quarantine and keeping their council seat empty? The vote was counted. Out of 2,000 species, 1,997 voted yes. Only 3 voted no. Hyun was one. Jinwoo was another. The third was Danby, a military commander who had studied Earth's history and saw something the others missed. The quarantine continues, Speaker Vren announced. Earth will remain under observation. If they achieve lasting peace and unite their world, we will reconsider. Until then, the seat remains empty. This is for their own protection as much as ours. The delegates began to leave. The meeting was over. But Haeyeon stayed behind, staring at the empty seat. She had spent decades studying Earth. She had watched their television broadcasts and listened to their music. She had seen their wars and their compassion. She had seen them save strangers and sacrifice themselves for others. She had seen things that troubled her. The council thought humans were not ready for the stars. But Han wondered if maybe the truth was different. Maybe the council was not ready for humans. Maybe that empty seat should stay empty. Not because humans were too primitive to fill it, but because once they did, everything would change. She looked up at the galaxy map spinning slowly above. Somewhere out there in the dark between the stars, something was watching. Something hungry. Something that had destroyed civilizations before. And when it came, the council would need warriors. They would need survivors. They would need people who refused to give up. They would need Deathworlders. Whether they knew it or not, the monitoring station floated in the darkness of space. 50 light years from Earth, it was called Vigil 7, and it had one job. Watch humanity. Record everything. Report back to the council. Inside the station, researcher Min Ho stood in front of a wall covered in screens. Each screen showed a different part of Earth. Cities with millions of people. Oceans with ships crossing them. Deserts where almost nothing lived. Mountains covered in snow. All of it was being watched and recorded. Minna had scales like a lizard and 3 fingers on each hand. He had been studying humans for 20 years. Sometimes he felt sorry for them. They seemed to struggle so much. They fought over everything. Land, resources, ideas, religion. They could not agree on anything. His assistant, Yoonji, walked over to him. She was from the same species, but younger. She had only been on the station for 5 years. The report is ready, she said. 17 armed conflicts currently active. 32 regions with civil unrest. 3 major resource disputes that might turn into wars. Should I send it to the council? Minho nodded sadly. Yes, another cycle of violence to report. The council will not be pleased. But they will not be surprised either. He turned to walk away. But Yoonji made a sudden sound. Wait, look at this. She pointed to one of her screens. It showed a coastal city. Buildings were falling down. Roads were cracking open. People were running and screaming. An earthquake. A big one, Minho watched. He expected to see chaos. When disasters hit primitive civilizations, they usually collapsed. People would fight over food and water. The strong would take from the weak. Governments would lose control. He had seen it happen on other worlds, but that was not what happened on Earth. Within hours, ships started arriving from across the planet. Big military ships and small fishing boats. Aircraft carriers and private planes. They came from nations that were supposed to be enemies. A Chinese rescue team landed next to an American medical unit. Russian doctors worked alongside Japanese nurses. Indian engineers helped Korean soldiers pull people from collapsed buildings. This does not make sense, Minho whispered. Yoonji pulled up more footage. A soldier from one nation was carrying an injured child. The child was from a country his nation was currently fighting a war against. But the soldier did not care. He ran through dangerous rubble to get the child to safety. Medics from an enemy nation took the child and started treating her immediately. No one asked about nationality. No one cared about politics. Look at this, Yunji said, switching to another feed. Civilians were forming human chains, passing supplies hand to hand. Strangers risking their lives to save other strangers. People sharing food even though they were hungry themselves. They are helping each other, Youngji said quietly. Even the ones who are supposed to be enemies. Minho could not look away. For 3 days he watched Earth respond to the disaster. Supplies flowed from every corner of the planet. Money was donated. Volunteers traveled across continents to help. Nations that had been fighting each other for decades suddenly worked together perfectly. This is inconsistent with their profile, Minho said. We have classified them as a violent, fractured species. But this is not violence. This is cooperation on a scale that would impress many council species. Over the next few weeks, they started looking at Earth differently. They began noticing things they had missed before. A man jumping into a freezing river to save a drowning dog. A woman giving her last meal to a homeless stranger. Communities rebuilding after hurricanes. Scientists sharing discoveries freely instead of keeping them secret. Artists creating beauty in the middle of war zones. People laughing and dancing, even when everything around them was falling apart. Sir Youngji said one day, I think we have been measuring the wrong things. She pulled up comparison data from other council species. Every species that joined the council achieved peace through evolution. Over millions of years, they became less aggressive, less territorial, less competitive. They evolved away from violence. That is how they became peaceful in humans. Minho asked, though he was beginning to understand. Humans have not evolved away from violence. They are still apex predators. They still have all those aggressive instincts. Their bodies still make adrenaline. Their brains still respond to threats with fight or flight. But somehow, they built cooperation anyway. Not by losing their violent nature, but by choosing to be better than their nature. They choose peace while keeping the capacity for war. That should not be possible. According to everything we know about evolution and civilization, that should not work. Minho stared at the data for a long time. They are choosing to be good, he said slowly, even though being violent would be easier. Even though their own biology pushes them toward aggression. They choose compassion. That is not weakness. That is incredible strength. Should we report this to the council? Yunji asked. Yes. Minho said, I think we need to completely reassess our evaluation criteria. The council has been judging Earth by the wrong standards. We expected them to be peaceful like us, but they are not like us. They may never be like us. And that might not be a bad thing. He began composing a priority message to the council. It would take weeks for the message to reach them, but Minho felt it was important. The council needed to understand what humanity really was. Not a failed species waiting to destroy itself, but something new, something unique. A species that was violent and compassionate at the same time. Aggressive and cooperative. Selfish and generous. They were full of contradictions, and somehow those contradictions made them stronger. As Minho wrote his report, the station's long-range sensors started beeping. Yunji checked them and froze. Sir, she said. Her voice was shaking. We are detecting a massive fleet, emerging from dark space at the edge of council territory. Minho looked at the sensor readings. His blood went cold. He knew what this was. Every species in the galaxy knew. It was the nightmare that everyone feared but hoped would never come. The Devourer swarmed, he whispered. The swarm was a legend. A horror story that species told to frighten their children. Except it was real. It was a hive-minded species that consumed everything in its path. Planets, ships, entire civilizations. It broke down all matter into raw materials and used them to build more of itself. It had no interest in talking. No capacity for negotiation. It just consumed. The council had kept the swarm contained for thousands of years. Massive defensive lines. Millions of automated weapons. Huge fleets guarding the borders. It had always been enough to hold them back. Until now. How many ships? Minho asked. Yunji checked the readings again, hoping she was wrong. Hundreds of thousands. Maybe millions. Sir, this is not a probe. This is not a small raid. This is an invasion. They are coming for the core worlds. Minho looked back at Earth, spinning peacefully on the monitors. The humans had no idea what was coming. In a few weeks, maybe a month, the swarm would reach their planet. They would be consumed without ever knowing why. Without ever getting a chance to reach the stars, unless something changed. Unless the council decided that maybe, just maybe, it was time to fill that empty seat. The emergency council session was chaos. 2,000 species all talking at once, shouting, arguing, panicking. Speaker Vren tried to maintain order, but even his authority was not enough. Not when the Devourer swarm had returned. Fleet Commander Danby stood at the center of the chamber. She was a warrior from a species that looked like walking crystals. Light refracted through her body in rainbow patterns, but there was nothing beautiful about the news she brought. Defense Line Gamma has fallen, she announced. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. The swarm has adapted. All of our weapons are now ineffective. Plasma cannons that used to destroy their ships now barely scratch them. Kinetic strikes that used to punch through their hulls now bounce off. Energy fields that used to hold them back now let them pass through. They have evolved countermeasures to everything we have. The chamber fell silent. Defense Line Gamma was supposed to be impregnable. It had held for 3,000 years. What about Line Beta? Someone asked. It will fall within 3 days, Danby said flatly. Maybe 4. After that, there is nothing between the swarm and the core worlds. The core worlds. 17 billion beings live there. Hundreds of different species. It was the heart of galactic civilization. Everything important was there. The best universities, the greatest museums, the most advanced research facilities, and now it was all going to be consumed. What are our options? Speaker Vren asked. His crystal body had stopped glowing. He looked dim and gray. Evacuation, Danby replied. We have transport ships. If we start now, we can save maybe 40% of the population. The rest... She did not finish the sentence. Everyone understood. Ambassador Heon stood up. What about the reserve weapons? The ones we locked away because they were too dangerous? Already deployed, Danby said. They bought us 6 hours. The swarm adapted to them. We are fighting a war we cannot win. Every time we use something new, they learn to counter it within hours. We are running out of ideas. For 3 days, the council debated. Ancient weapons were brought out of storage. Forbidden technologies were authorized. Tactics that had not been used in millennia were tried. Nothing worked. The swarm kept coming. Slowly, unstoppably, consuming everything in its path. On the 4th day, a junior analyst named Sora approached Ambassador Heon. Sora was young and nervous. He carried a data pad that showed information about Earth, Ambassador Sora said quietly. I have been looking through our database of pre-contact civilizations, searching for any resources we might have overlooked. Earth is 40 light years from the swarm's projected path. They will reach it in about 1 month. The humans will be consumed along with us. Hyun felt sadness for the species she had studied for so long. They would die without ever knowing that other civilizations existed, without ever getting their chance among the stars. A tragedy, she said, but we cannot save them. We are still trying to evacuate our own people. That is not why I'm showing you this, Sora said quickly. He pulled up military data about Earth. I have been analyzing their weapons capabilities. Ambassador, they are armed beyond anything we have ever seen from a pre-contact species. The data appeared on Hyun's screen. Her eyes widened. They have 17,000 nuclear weapons, Sora continued. Active and ready to launch. They have armies with millions of soldiers. Navies that control their oceans. Air forces that dominate their skies. They have even militarized space around their planet and the digital realm of their computer networks. They have weapons we banned 5,000 years ago. They are armed for a war that could destroy their entire world several times over. They are primitive, Heian said, but her voice was uncertain. They are vicious, Sora corrected. And creative. Look at their innovation rate. New weapon systems every few years. New tactics constantly evolving. They have spent their entire recorded history perfecting the art of war. Every nation on their planet maintains a standing military. They teach warfare in schools. They study military history. They train soldiers from a young age. Ambassador, they are not just fighters. They are professional soldiers. All 8 billion of them live on a world that has been trying to kill them since they evolved. And they are still here. Hyun stared at the data. She thought about everything she had observed. Humans running into burning buildings. Humans diving into dangerous waters. Humans charging enemy positions knowing they would die. Humans who looked at impossible odds and decided to fight anyway. Are you suggesting we make contact? She asked. I am suggesting we have nothing left to lose, Sora said. The Council is dying. In 2 weeks, the core worlds will be consumed. In a month, the swarm will reach the outer colonies. In 6 months, galactic civilization will be gone. We are out of options. We are out of weapons. We are out of time. Maybe it is time we talk to the Death Worlders. Jan thought about the empty seat. The seat that had waited so long. The seat they had kept empty because humans were too violent, too dangerous, too unpredictable. The Council will never agree, she said. The Council is dying, Sora repeated. Some of the most important species have already been consumed. Others are evacuating. The Council's authority is collapsing. If you want to make first contact, Ambassador, now is the time. In a few more days, there might not be a council left to stop you. Hyun made a decision. It was probably against every protocol. It would almost certainly end her career. She might even be put on trial if the council survived. But none of that mattered if everyone was dead. Prepare a first contact package, she ordered. Full disclosure. Show them the swarm. Show them what is coming. Show them the galaxy. And then ask them for help. Ask them for what? Specifically? Sora asked. Han looked at the image of Earth, rotating slowly on her screen. A blue and green world covered in clouds. A death world full of apex predators who had somehow learned to cooperate. Who chose compassion despite their violent nature. Who never surrendered, no matter how bad things got. Ask them to do what they do best, she said. Ask them to fight. Within hours, a council ship departed for Earth. It carried Ambassador Hyun, Fleet Commander Danby, and a small team of diplomats. It would take them 3 days to reach Earth at maximum speed. 3 days to convince humanity to join a war they did not even know existed. 3 days to turn 8 billion isolated primitives into soldiers for a galactic civilization they had never met. It was insane. It was desperate. It was probably hopeless, but it was also their last chance. Captain. Jiho was 3 weeks into a routine patrol when every screen on his ship went black. The destroyer was sailing in the Pacific Ocean, conducting standard operations. Everything was normal, until it was not. Then every screen turned back on. Every computer, every phone, every electronic device on the entire ship, all of them displayed the same message in perfect Korean. Do not be alarmed. We are friends. Jiho stared at the message. Then he looked out the window. A ship was materializing in the sky. It was huge, bigger than any aircraft carrier, and it was floating in the air like it weighed nothing. Lights pulsed along its hull. It was not human technology. It was not anything that should exist. The message appeared again. This time on every screen in the world. Every phone. Every television. Every computer. In every language simultaneously. Humanity. We are the Galactic Council. We apologize for this sudden introduction. We need your help. In return, we offer knowledge, technology, and a place among the stars. Time is short. Representatives are being transported to your United Nations. Headquarters, please do not fire upon our ambassadors. Within 2 hours, the leaders of every nation on Earth gathered at the UN building in New York. presidents and prime ministers, kings and queens, military commanders and intelligence chiefs. They all came. They had to. This was first contact. The moment humanity had wondered about for centuries. And it was happening right now. Ambassador Heian stood before them. She looked almost like a large cat that walked upright. Behind her stood Fleet Commander Danby, whose crystal body refracted light in strange patterns. There were others, too. Beings that looked like nothing from Earth. Beings that should not exist. Hyun spoke. A small device on her chest translated her words into every language in the room. Leaders of Earth, she said, I know you have many questions. I know you are angry that we have been watching you in secret. I know this is overwhelming. But we do not have time for proper introductions. We are dying. And soon, you will be too. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed the galaxy. Thousands of stars. Millions of planets, and a dark mass moving through it. Consuming everything? This is the Devourer Swarm, Hyun continued. They are a hive mind. Millions of ships, controlled by a single consciousness. They do not negotiate. They do not communicate. They consume. They break down everything into raw materials. Planets, ships, people. Everything becomes fuel for more swarm. The hologram zoomed in to show a planet being consumed. The surface was covered in biomechanical structures. They were stripping away the atmosphere, breaking down the oceans, consuming the land. Within hours, a living world became a dead ball of rock. The Galactic Council has fought them for 3,000 years, Heian said. We built massive defense lines. We created weapons specifically to destroy them. We held them at bay. Until 3 days ago, they have adapted. Our weapons no longer work. Our defenses are falling. In 2 weeks, they will reach the core worlds where 17 billion beings live. In 1 month, they will reach Earth. Secretary General Bora spoke up. She was from South Korea and had been in office for 5 years. She kept her voice calm and steady. You want us to fight your war? She said. I want you to fight for survival, Heian corrected. If the swarm reaches Earth, your species ends. Every human, every animal, every plant, everything consumed and processed. Your world will be stripped to bare rock. But if you help us fight, if we win together, humanity earns its place in galactic civilization. A Russian general stood up. What do you offer in return? Everything, Hyun said simply. Faster than light travel, technology to heal diseases, clean energy that will never run out, extended lifespans, access to thousands of inhabited worlds, the accumulated knowledge of 2,000 species. The galaxy will be open to you. But first we must survive. An American admiral leaned forward. What exactly are we fighting? Fleet Commander Danby stepped forward. Her warrior nature was obvious in how she moved. Show them combat footage, she commanded. The hologram changed. It showed council ships engaging the swarm. Massive warships fired weapons that could destroy mountains. The swarm ships absorbed the hits and kept coming. Energy beams that should have vaporized metal simply faded away. Kinetic rounds that should have punched through holes bounced off. Nothing worked. The council ships retreated. The swarm pursued, caught them, tore them apart. The hologram showed a council cruiser being ripped open. The crew was pulled out into space. The swarm processed them instantly. They adapt to everything we use, Danby explained. We fire plasma weapons. They develop heat-resistant armor. We use kinetic strikes. They make their holes harder. We try energy fields. They phase through them. We have exhausted every weapon we have. We need something they have never seen before. We need your creativity, your aggression, your refusal to accept defeat. A Chinese general asked the question everyone was thinking. Why do you think we can succeed where you failed? Danby smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a warrior recognizing another warrior. Because you are still armed for extinction, she said. Because you never stopped innovating in warfare. Because you come from a death world. A planet that tried to kill you every day, and you survived anyway. You are apex predators. You are persistence hunters. You are the species that walked out of Africa with nothing but sharp rocks and conquered an entire planet. You do not know it yet, but you are Deathworlders, and that makes you the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Bora looked around the room at the other leaders. She saw fear in their eyes, but she also saw something else. Determination. Humans did not surrender. Not when their home was threatened. "How long do we have to decide?" she asked. "You already decided," Jan said gently. "I have studied your species for decades. I have watched your history. Humans do not abandon allies. You do not surrender to extinction. Look around this room. You are already organizing. You are already planning. The question is not whether you will fight. The question is whether you will fight smart." Han was right. In capitals around the world, orders were already being issued. Military commanders were being briefed. Armies were mobilizing. Navies were preparing to sail. Air forces were getting ready to launch. For the first time in human history, every nation was uniting against a common threat. A Japanese diplomat stood up. "What do we do first?" Danby pulled up technical specifications. "We retrofit your weapons onto our ships. We combine your tactics with our technology. We teach you to fight in space. And we move fast. The swarm reaches defense line Alpha in 3 days. We need to be ready. How many ships do you need?" an Indian general asked. "All of them," Danby replied. "Every warship, every fighter jet, every soldier. We are not fighting for territory. We are not fighting for resources. We are fighting for existence. This is total war. Either the swarm dies, or we do." Bora stood up. "Then let us get started. Humanity is going to war." The room erupted in activity. Generals coordinating with admirals. Engineers talking to scientists. Diplomats establishing chains of command. American carriers would work alongside Chinese destroyers. Russian submarines would coordinate with British cruisers. Korean, Brazilian, Nigerian, Turkish, and Israeli forces would all fight together. Hyun watched it happen. She had been right. Humans did not hesitate. They did not argue about politics or borders. When extinction came for them, they united. Just like they did during natural disasters. Just like they always did when things were truly desperate. The empty seat would finally be filled, but not the way the Council had imagined. Not with a peaceful, evolved species ready to join galactic civilization. With warriors from a death world, bringing war to the stars. The swarm hit defense line Alpha, expecting another easy victory. They had already consumed line Gamma and line Beta. Alpha would fall just like the others. Then the core worlds. Then everything. But when they arrived, they found something unexpected. The defense line had been reinforced. New ships filled the space between the automated weapons platforms. Strange ships. Small and crude compared to Council vessels. But there were thousands of them, and they were moving with aggressive purpose. The first human wave hit the swarm like a hammer, striking glass Fleet Admiral Hajun commanded from the bridge of the carrier Incheon. The ship had been built in South Korea. It had been retrofitted with Council technology in 72 hours. Around him, ships from every nation on Earth formed a battle line. American carriers next to Chinese destroyers? Russian cruisers, coordinating with Japanese frigates? Indian, Brazilian, Nigerian, British, French, Turkish, Israeli ships all working together. It was the largest combined human military operation in history, and it was happening in space. All ships, Hajun commanded. Weapons free. Show them how Earth fights. Humans opened fire. Nuclear-pumped lasers tore through the darkness. Kinetic kill vehicles accelerated to impossible speeds. Antimatter torpedoes that humanity had developed in secret. But more important than the weapons was how humans used them. Council tactics were precise, calculated, efficient. Human tactics were chaos. Fighter pilot. Borum screamed through the swarm formations in her modified craft. The G-forces should have killed her. Her flight suit was flooding with oxygen and stimulants just to keep her conscious. She did not care. She fired missiles at point-blank range. She used her fighter's hull as a battering ram. When her ammunition ran out, she aimed her ship at the largest swarm vessel she could find and detonated her fusion reactor. 43 more pilots did the same within 10 minutes, aboard the monitoring station. A council observer watched in horror. "They're insane," he whispered. "No," Fleet Commander Danby said quietly. She was watching too. "They are winning." The swarm adapted quickly. Their ships developed countermeasures to human nuclear weapons. Energy shields appeared to block lasers. Armor plates thickened to resist kinetic strikes. But humans adapted faster. When nukes stopped working, they switched to kinetic bombardment. When lasers were blocked, they used biological weapons designed to attack the swarm's organic components. When missiles were intercepted, human pilots flew close enough to deliver payloads by hand. Sergeant Tywin led a boarding team onto a swarm vessel. The idea was insane. No council soldier had attempted to board a swarm ship in 3,000 years. But Tywin did not care about council tactics. He kicked open a breach in the hull and led his marines inside. The corridors were biomechanical nightmares. Walls that pulsed like living tissue. Floors covered in organic circuitry. Swarm drones that were part machine and part insect. Tywin's unit moved through it all with weapons firing. Plasma rifles. Explosives. Even old-fashioned bullets. They destroyed everything they found. Power conduits. Processing nodes. Organic brains that controlled ship functions. A council liaison was embedded with the team. He was pinned down behind cover, terrified. "Why are you not afraid?" he shouted at Tywin. Tywin grinned as he reloaded his rifle. "Afraid? My grandmother survived a war that killed millions. My father worked in jobs where one mistake meant death. My mother crossed an ocean with no guarantee she would make it. I come from a species that left Africa with nothing but sharp rocks and conquered an entire planet. We climbed to the top of the food chain through pure stubbornness. This," he gestured at the swarm drones, "this is just another fight." The battle lasted 17 hours. When it ended, Defense Line Alpha still stood. The swarm had been pushed back. For the first time in the war, they had failed to advance, but the cost was brutal. 40,000 human soldiers were dead. 200 ships destroyed. Earth had lost more people in a single day than in the previous 100 years of warfare combined, in the UN Emergency Council. Representatives reviewed the casualty lists. There was grief. There were tears. But there was no hesitation. "Send the second wave," Secretary General Bora ordered. "And the third? And every wave after that, until the swarm is destroyed, or we are." The war continued for 6 months. Humans died by the millions. But they never stopped coming. The swarm encountered something it had never faced before. An enemy that adapted as fast as it did. An enemy that evolved tactics hourly. An enemy that absolutely refused to accept extinction. Human engineers worked alongside council scientists. They developed new weapons every week. New tactics every day. They studied the swarm constantly, looking for weaknesses. They tried things the council had never considered. Things that were desperate, dangerous, sometimes suicidal. One engineer named G1 had an idea that made even the council's military scientists uncomfortable. She proposed a weapon that was both biological and digital. A virus that would attack the swarm's hive mind directly. "Are you certain this will work?" Fleet Commander Danby asked. "No," Juwan admitted. "But I am certain that nothing else has worked." The swarm adapts to physical weapons. But this virus is based on human computer code and biological warfare principles. It is something they have never encountered. Something their evolution has not prepared them for. "This will kill every swarm organism in the galaxy," Danby said quietly. "All of them. Billions of individual creatures. It is genocide." Giwan looked at her steadily. "They have consumed 300 billion beings. They destroyed entire civilizations. They are not going to stop. They cannot stop. It is what they are. Commander, sometimes the only way to preserve life is to end it." The final battle happened at the swarm's home cluster. A massive fleet of council and human ships fought through the swarm's outer defenses. Admiral Hajun and Fleet Commander Danby led the attack together. Human fighters and council cruisers working in perfect coordination. They reached the center of the cluster, the heart of the swarm, a massive biomechanical construct that housed the primary hive mind. It was protected by thousands of ships. Millions of drones? It was supposed to be impregnable. Jiwan's weapon was loaded onto a single human shuttle. The pilot was a volunteer named Kyung Ho. He knew it was a one-way mission. He did not hesitate. For Earth, he said simply. Then he launched. Swarm ships swarmed him immediately. His shields failed. His hull was breached, but he kept going. He fired his engines at maximum. He pushed through the swarm of defenders. He reached the hive mind construct, and he deployed the weapon. The virus spread through the swarm's biological network in seconds. Through their digital systems in minutes. It was too fast to adapt to, too comprehensive to counter, too alien to their evolution. It rewrote their genetic code and corrupted their hive mind simultaneously. The swarm thrashed, fought desperately, tried to adapt. But adaptation takes time, and time was something they no longer had. Within 72 hours, the swarm was extinct. Every organism, every ship, every trace of the species that had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years, gone. The cost was almost too high to measure. Humanity had lost 8 million soldiers, 2,000 ships. But they had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. 1 year after the war ended, the Galactic Council convened. The chamber had been rebuilt. Many seats stood empty now. Species that had been lost to the swarm, but one seat that had always been empty was finally occupied. Ambassador Taeyong sat in Earth's chair. Behind him were representatives from every nation. They still argued about things back home. But here, among the stars, they were united. Speaker Vren addressed the assembly. The council recognizes Earth and humanity. The quarantine is lifted. The empty seat is filled. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You saved us when we could not save ourselves. Taeyong bowed respectfully. We did what any species would do when facing extinction. We fought. No, old Jinwoo spoke up. His voice was soft but clear. Most species do not. Most evolved past violence over millions of years. They became peaceful, cooperative, rational, and when something truly violent appeared, they had forgotten how to fight. You reminded us what we lost, and what we gained by losing it. Ambassador Hyun stood. We kept Earth's seat empty because we thought you were not ready. We were wrong. You were not ready for the Council. The Council was not ready for you. What do you mean? Taeyong asked. We had grown soft, Danby said. Safe. We forgot that the galaxy is fundamentally hostile to life. You never forgot. Every day on Earth is a struggle against gravity, disease, weather, predators, each other. You are warriors because you had to be. You are survivors because anything less meant extinction. Speaker Vran's crystal body glowed bright. The galaxy is vast. We have explored only a tiny fraction. We stopped because we were afraid of what we might find. But you are not afraid. You come from a death world. You are death worlders. And now that you are here, perhaps we can finally see what lies beyond. Taeyong smiled. Members of the Council, people of the galaxy. Earth accepts its seat with honor. And yes, we are ready to see what is out there. That is what humans do. We explore. We adapt. We survive. And we never surrender. Now we are not alone anymore. The chamber filled with sounds of approval, relief, joy. The empty seat was filled at last. And the galaxy, having learned what humanity could do, finally understood why that seat had remained empty for so long. Not because humanity was not ready for the stars, but because the stars were not ready for humanity,